Welcome back to LSNTV. Tim Jackson here. Today I am delighted to have with us a woman who is taking the fight head on to Planned Parenthood. There is an app that Planned Parenthood launched which a lot of people aren't aware of, but many teenagers unfortunately are. It's called the RU app, and it allows access for Planned Parenthood into the lives of teenagers who are considering abortion or becoming sexually active. Thankfully, there is at least one woman who is trying to push back against this particular app, and she's actually created an app of her own that's in development, is very close to being launched, and will make a massive difference if it can just get over the line. So today we're delighted to have with us Theresa Barbale, all the way from Florida. Theresa, thank you very much for joining us here today on LSNTV. Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about the app that you're launching? It's called MyMentor.
So I worked in the schools providing abstinence education. So materials that would stop Planned Parenthood from having contact with youth. And what I was seeing was that the kids would get a great talk or a great book, and then schools would recommend this RU app, and they would recommend it young. When people think of kids getting a Planned Parenthood app, in their mind, they're thinking teenagers, but this app is actually targeted towards 10, 11, and 12-year-olds even. And it is terrible. Everything that Planned Parenthood can offer, in a nutshell, is that they want to confuse youth about their sexuality, get them addicted to sex. They want them to be dependent on contraceptives, and they want them ultimately as clients for abortion, or they want their significant other as a client for abortion. So by becoming the person, or in the case of the RU app, the service that essentially is the go-to person or the source of information, that makes them the most likely place that when a child or a young adult is in need, they're going to turn to. And what we've seen over the past year is that through COVID, virtual medicine took off. We saw the telehealth industry just skyrocket, and a lot of the regulations that surrounded abortion by mail and telehealth Planned Parenthood services were all removed. So everything began shifting, and apps and app services took center stage. And meanwhile, the FDA more recently removed all regulations regarding abortion pills in the US, which is just terrible. So essentially, a child of any age, and they do not stipulate age. So if you're a child of 5 and you pick it up and you say you're 14, they do not ask. So any age can use this. They can request abortion by mail pills, and provided they have the place or means to get it, they can in fact receive these materials, goods, as well as advice on what to do and how to live.
Without their parents ever knowing.
Without their parents or any consent whatsoever. And you can look on any Planned Parenthood site, and they will tell you that all telehealth services are completely private and confidential. So there's no record. And as far as telehealth goes, it's less expensive, and abortion industry is making more money off of it. So they're actually producing more abortions with this modern technology than they would without it. So they're able to have access to our children young. They are able to provide them services that we do not want them to have. And they're also not able to follow up, because what we've seen, and more recently, is that you'll have a child who's 14 years old, discovers they're pregnant, and they're supposed to only be up to 10 weeks and receive an abortion pill. But can a 14-year-old really know that they're 10 weeks pregnant? And a virtual health meeting through a RU app is never going to tell them how far along they are. There's no ultrasound. They could have pills sent to them. So all this abortion by mail movement has just skyrocketed the abortion industry. And now, with us being fully aware that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, that was when we reached out to LifeFunder and said, we have this project and we want to get it over the finish line. And if you could help us get it to that endpoint so that we beat them at their own game, so that we actually have services, our app We'll be able to tell them where crisis pregnancy centers are, how to get help. And the RU app is actually considered social emotional learning. So it's actually not considered sex ed. It's actually considered emotional health, which is even more upsetting. So it means that kids are recommended that for their own emotional well-being, they should be logging into this app and chatting with the chatbot. And the chatbot talks about everything from, do you know what sex you want to be? Have you tried other things, to making suggestions on positions? And it goes down the line and just gets worse and worse as you go, from masturbation to recommending different forms of birth control.
So Planned Parenthood's RU app is actually a robot that's chatting with these children and supposed to provide emotional support, whereas your MyMentor app is actually a person who's going to be dialoguing with these teens when they contact them. Is that right?
That's exactly right. The RU app eventually will transfer to a person, but for the most part, kids are never going to see a human being. In our app, they're going to video conference with an actual person and talk, and that person will be given prompts to help and protect and guide our children, not to confuse and distort them. And we're doing mental emotional support. So if there is an issue, we aren't going to give them a rudimentary answer that came from a chatbot. We're going to actually look for a true answer that serves the child.
And so there must be a lot of not only development of the app required, but also training for those who are involved in the long term.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of development. It was kind of funny when we began building the app, the developers and the team that we got on board said, you're building a village of apps, not one. And it's the programming. It's making this the best. So Planned Parenthood put all their money and all of their effort into developing this RU app in anticipation of the time when they knew Roe v. Wade would be overturned. They had their backup plan. They fueled it, they funded it, they made it something that is terrible and terrifying to parents. And so we have done exactly what they did. And we've apples for apples, trying to beat them at their own game. We don't want to say, look, we have a product and it's okay. We want to say, look, when we present it to a school, we want to say, if you use their app, you're getting a robot. You use us, you get a real person. We have built training modules. So the training is housed in the app, and we can do background checks with the app so that we know that our mentors will be good people. And we can also make sure that the youth are receiving the mentoring they need by having keywords that are in conversation that would trigger a response. So say the youth said, I might be pregnant. It would actually geolocate where the closest pregnancy center and recommend it to them.
Yeah, sorry. So you're really going head to head here with Planned Parenthood, an organization that receives over $600 million from the taxpayer in the US alone, and who we know funnels tens of millions into education every year to try and influence teenagers for the worse. And it seems as if your organization is spearheading what could be an incredibly effective way to save lives ultimately and help teenagers to live better lives.
Exactly. And what we've seen this past year, we actually had an event with Abby Johnson, and she told us that she believes 66% of abortions were now procured online and through the mail. She said that the clinics are continuing to close, and we've seen clinics close, and we're overjoyed by the fact that we're able to save that life. But we're also fully aware of the danger that they are moving online. They're moving the lines. So when we're praying in front of a clinic, we have to think we're praying over a computer, that we are putting essentially our sidewalk counselors into the app and saying, look, here's your new identity. Here's where you're going to be, because this is where the kids are. We see them all the time. What do they have? They have their phone in their hand. That's where they live. That's where they operate. And we have to get them where they are at. And we have to fight fire with fire, and we have to use the best means possible. So that's why we did not spare any expense or lower any standard. This is to the best standards and created in a way that we want to be able to go to schools and say, look, we have a mentoring app and it's better. And that's really our goal. We want to say we're going to help kids, because what we saw as well is that our suicide rate, even in our own county, went up 400% through 2020. And a lot of this is the fact that kids are looking for social emotional help, and they're being turned to a Rue chatbot. And that's terribly disturbing. So you don't want kids who have emotional health issues going to Planned Parenthood.
This is not just something that might save the life of unborn children. It might actually save the lives of teenagers who are contemplating suicide.
Contemplating suicide or thinking what's wrong with them, because essentially a lot of counselors at this time, it's very sad, but if a child says, I think there's something wrong with me, or depressed or anything else, they are telling them, say our schools, say they're in school. So ideally you have a child in school who's logged into the app and they've said they want a mentor. They're talking to their mentor and they say, I'm feeling depressed. The mentor can automatically say, you should get counseling. Whereas a robot is not going to have that kind of response. A robot's not going to realize that there's a child that's in need. They're also not going to realize that this is something that should be escalated. And also, we're not going to give the response that we believe that your sexuality is the problem, that we believe that you shouldn't be male or female, and try to confuse them about who they are or what they're going through. Because a real person can say, oh, well, guess what? You're experiencing your parents' divorce, or you lost your grandmother. This is feelings and a time in your life that will pass. Whereas an app, or for Planned Parenthood, it's creating clients. They want to create clients. They want to confuse kids. And what better time to do it is when they're vulnerable or emotional. It's very diabolical, actually.
They're feeding and profiting off people's traumas, whereas hopefully your app will be able to help lead people towards healing ultimately, and better choices, better decisions in life.
And supporting them so that they know this is not something that just goes away, so that they have a go-to person who is going to be there and be trained to support them in making good choices. So hopefully youth will stay in school and not be having sex before marriage, and not be in a position where they ever have to think about Planned Parenthood. Because that's the best case scenario, is that we've raised a healthy, well-developed child that thinking about going to Planned Parenthood is not on their radar. They're more worried about their hopes, goals, and dreams than, should I really be a girl or a boy? And really well-motivated, adjusted kids are not in that situation.
So you're fighting Planned Parenthood on so many fronts and taking them on. What exactly is needed in order to get this app finished and launched?
So we've been trying to raise $100,000 over the last month to get us over that finish line, so that we're actually able to finish up the last platforms and finish up our programming, because it takes a lot of man hours. It's very labor intensive. And we need that to be focused in and completed quickly, because we would like it to be done and into testing, because we want to test it first. We don't want to just tell kids to run and use it. So we would like it to be tested and completed prior to June of this year.
Okay.
And we believe that's when the DOPS is answered.
And so we've set up a special campaign for this particular app on LifeFunder.com. And viewers can find it there, lifefunder.com/MyMentor, the name of the app. And we hope and pray that people will give generously to this very worthy cause that can really save lives and heal a lot of broken lives as well. Theresa, out of interest, how did you get involved in pro-life activism?
I went to Ave Maria University in Naples, Florida, and I was involved through college. I went to the March for Life, and I was a youth minister for over a decade, and saw the problems that were in our society, and went to some good friends of mine and came up with a solution.
Yeah, it's incredible really when we read headlines about Planned Parenthood, about how they, for instance, have sold the organs of aborted babies for profit. and how they try to hit newer and higher targets when it comes to the number of aborted babies that they kill every year. In 2018 and 19, we know they killed 350,000 unborn babies in the US alone. And so it's a staggering amount of lives that are lost every year. And it's very inspiring, I have to say, to know that there's people out there like you who are taking the fight to them head on and challenging their dominance, essentially, in the lives of so many teenagers and adults.
And we can help so many clinics too, because the clinics are trying to find where they need to be. And by just having an app where we can link to where they are, helps them to find the clients. And also by identifying the Roo app as a problem and letting people know, like awareness that this is a huge risk that you can help to stop, because the online abortion is the tool of traffickers. So youth who are being trafficked, the online abortion where no one sees you, no one knows what's going on, that is something that they like, and it has fueled the trafficking industry. And we do not want to help that in any way, shape, or form. And we know that Planned Parenthood, by giving no time where there's tests or patient qualifications or even IDs, that this allows traffickers to do whatever they want. And it is terrible, and something that we aim to stop by providing real information and not allowing this to happen, and getting it out of our schools so that it's not something that's an everyday name. Most of the abortion is happening now by mail. I mean, Abby Johnson gave a projection that she believes that abortion clinics will be extinct in the next 10 years, and that everything will come through apps. And as a country and as a whole, we don't have anything to combat that. If we don't have this app, I mean, there's literally no apps that are existent that fight Roo. And that is where they've dumped all their money. Planned Parenthood has spent everything to create this diabolical, demon in your phone that there's nothing we can do about.
Well, Theresa, your work is truly incredible, and I hope and pray that people give generously to the app that you're trying to get over the line. Thank you so much for being with us here today on LSNTV.
Thank you so much for logging on and watching this video. And I appreciate you giving to LifeFunder and helping to support us to get over this goal. And I invite you now to donate, and I invite you for a few months from now to please become a mentor and go through our training and be the voice for these youth who need someone in their life, because with someone like you, they will be able to make good choices and be the change in the world instead of being victims of Planned Parenthood. And we ask you to support this app. We ask you to support our LifeFunder campaign and all the campaigns on LifeFunder. Thank you very much.